Pine. My grandfather was Fast Elk, and also we're related to Smoke. And so on my mother's side, her name was Feather Necklace. Or, when you go to get baptized and that, sometimes the priest would change your name. And so they shortened it from Feather Necklace to Feather. And I come from a family of resistors, as you might know. I stand here on the shoulders of the Wounded Knee veterans. I see that we've been talking a lot about unity. Man, the first time I saw and experienced unity was in the Huchoka. We Wanwachi. Man, my mentor, spiritual leaders, Crow Dog and Richard Moose Camp and Richard Two Dogs. They've all guided our families. They buried my brothers. I'm the only one left. I had 3 brothers. One was my twin brother, Ted, Russell, and Dale. And our mother, her name was Theodora Feather. My dad was Hank Means. And so I take great pride in representing them here today. But I want to talk a little bit about the unity. And thank Phil again. Phil has so many recognitions and thank yous that his chest starting to stick out now. So, but I'm glad to stop by. Usually I go to his office. We have some meetings there together, and he allows me to take part in the treaty meetings. And so I keep close in contact because even though I'm from Pine Ridge, I live in Rosebud. And so they're very active. One of the things we always talk about is to bring a treaty office to every reservation, whether that's all the way up into Canada, but wherever the Oceti-Sakowin territory, we want to bring that treaty thinking, that treaty history, that treaty implementation to our people in those areas. And we have to do it on a daily basis now. Because I know at Pine Ridge, we work closely with the TIPO. That's the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. The reason why, because we use that to battle against United States government policies, especially in the area of extractive industries or mining companies. The TIPO is very important to carry out the federal laws that allow us to document our sacred sites, our cultural resources. And so I want to give them recognition because they're a stopping block. They're a holding pattern for our tribes that we can utilize and work together and stop some of this, or at least slow down the mining industry, extractive industries, they call them in the international community. But when we talk about the unity and the Sundance, I have to give you just a little bit of history because it wasn't easy to establish Sundance as a regular ceremonial date within our Tioshpais because it was very difficult because the church had a lot of influence. I remember the last Sundance at Pine Ridge, they used to have what they call Sundance, but in there was a rodeo, powwow, carnival, and then dance half a day Sundance. But Fool's Crow, he told us that's a test. So you have to still honor that because our people need that ceremony. We don't want it to disappear. We don't want the priests to get the attitude that they control our Sundance. And so one time in Wounded Knee, I think it was about 1972, the community invited Leonard Crowdog to have a Sundance at Wounded Knee. So he came down there. Somebody called up the priest. They got all excited. Father Steinmetz over at Holy Rosary. So he said, no, we got to stop that. So they sent police out to the Sundance grounds at Wounded Knee, and they arrested Crowdog. And I thought, while they're leaving, they said, oh, we forgot something. We're going to arrest a tree. Bring that as evidence. And so I thought they arrested Crowdog and a tree too. Took him down a Pine Ridge. And so eventually he got to take him and the tree back to Crowdog's paradise. And they finished the Sundance. And so I was privileged to dance there for at least 4 years. And then we went to Green Grass, and then we came back to Pine Ridge, to Fool's Crow. So I experienced that. And then, of course, now we go every year to Mr. Move Camp. My son danced there like on his 12th or 13th year. So he's keeping it going in our family so that we have someone to pray through at the tree, someone to support, someone to remember. Is my son that Fool's Crow named Matoi Chakchala. He dances there every year. So that's my experience with the unity. The true unity comes from the Hochoka, from the Wiwanwa tree. And so I want to talk now a little bit about the International Indian Treaty Council. We started 1974 on Standing Rock, a place called Chief Gall Inn. So all of us in the international community owe a debt of gratitude to the Standing Rock people. This was a time of Wounded Knee when we're starting. They said, the chief's headsmen, they said, Bill, we need a meeting. They told my brothers, the AIM people, we need a meeting to bring together the treaty people because we want to go to international community, United Nations. So we felt like, geez, that's a big job, but our cousin Warren Means, he was working at the Bismarck, at the training center there. And so he gave us an office space, and from there, we got it passed through various councils, because at that time, American Indian movement wasn't really welcome a lot of places. But Standing Rock, they had the foresight, they had the history of being dedicated to the treaties. And so we went there, where we were welcome. And they even gave us a brand new motel to stay in called the Chief Gall Inn. And that's where we started in 1974. There's over 3,000 delegates from throughout the whole Western Hemisphere that came there. And that's how we started. And we had a founding document that you can find on our website on the internet, treatycouncil.org. I tell we're getting fancy nowadays, so websites, all that. Information, that's a beautiful thing. And so if you look on there, you find our founding document is called the Declaration of Continuing Independence. And in there, it has the principles of our treaty rights. It has the principle of human rights. And so when we went to the UN, we dedicate ourselves to the issue of human rights because that's an international understanding. Human rights, nobody can give you that. Those are inherent rights. Those are inalienable rights. And so we have to thank a woman. They mentioned a woman. I'll name her. She's a strong woman. She was the wife of the President of the United States. She was one of the founders of the Declaration of Human Rights. Her name is Eleanor Roosevelt. She had the foresight that we need a basic standard for all people, a standard of inherent rights, and so came up with the Declaration on Human Rights. That's the field where we entered into United Nations. So they told us, when you go to the United Nations, take this treaty. That's what Foucault and the chiefs of that time told us. So that's what we did. We took the treaty, and every time they opened, we couldn't even get inside. But every time they cracked that door in the front of the United Nations, I thought we'd stick that treaty in there. Pretty soon they let us come in. They started listening to us. And so we began that long journey of 30 years from 1976, when we got our official recognition at the UN, until 2006. 30 years to pass the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. This is another document that establishes only a baseline. It establishes our basic rights as Indian people. It establishes our right to be human beings. Now imagine that, because at the UN, they only recognize us as what they call ethnic minorities. And so that's how we were subjugated underneath the United States. So we had to break that. So we brought the treaties in and said, hey, this is a nation. Treaties are not signed between labor unions or between human rights organizations. Treaties is nation to nation. So after we established ourselves over a period of 3 years it took us, and then another 30 years to establish ourselves as human beings with all the rights under the Declaration of Human Rights. So it was a long struggle, because we had meetings like this, but instead as indigenous people from all over the world. And so everybody had headphones. Someday we're going to do that here with the Lakota language and other allies like the Arapaho, Northern Cheyenne. We're going to bring them here, but we're going to have their speakers speak through the microphone so that every person could understand what somebody's saying. Whether you understand Lakota, whether you understand English, Spanish, whatever it is, we had to do all that. Imagine that. That's why it took 30 years, because Indians, they don't like to agree on a lot of things. And so painstakingly, year after year, sometimes we have to go all the way over to Geneva, Switzerland. That's the headquarters of the Human Rights Commission. So we went to another country, it's expensive. Sometimes like remind me of back in the day, when we go to rodeos, about 10 of us get in one room. That's the way it was at the United Nations. We had to share expenses because it's one of the most expensive cities in the world, Geneva, Switzerland. That's where we have everybody's money. All the money from our resources here in the Western Hemisphere is in the banks in Switzerland, what they call numbered accounts. So people don't have to identify where they got the money. They just have the money in what they call a numbered account without a name on there. So that's how we even learned the background of why Switzerland was always a neutral country and recognized as such, because they had everybody's money. From all the politicians around the world, they kept their money there in numbered accounts. So anyway, it's a financial center of the world. We found all these things out when we went to the Human Rights Council. And so as we began to work at the United Nations, we met people from various areas. They invited us to where they're from, because we found out about liberation. We found out about basic concept of self-determination, which means we have the right to be who we are. If we're Lakota, we have the right to speak our language. And so we started on this long trek to establish the basic rights of indigenous people, which came through in 1977 in the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. All this history is on our website. So if some of you students want to look up the history of international work of indigenous peoples, it's all there. And so the other thing that we were able to do was to meet people from all over the world excuse me, that were involved in liberation and self-determination. And what we found out was even the church had changed their position. There was revolutionary priests, or what we call priests that believe in self-determination, priests that believe in the human rights of indigenous people. And they developed a process. They developed a part of the Catholic Church, because in Central South America, where there's over 90% Indian people in 6 different countries, there's 80 million indigenous people south of U.S.-Mexico border. So we're not alone. We have a lot of allies. But these priests that we're all familiar with, they developed what they call liberation theology, which basically says you don't have to wait till you get to heaven to meet justice. You don't have to wait to heaven until you get your right to self-determination. You have a right to fight for that by any means necessary. That's liberation theology. You don't sit back and put money in the collection box and then hope and pray for liberation. You have a right to work for that. You have a right to use the church as an organizing mechanism for liberation, for self-determination. So that's the people that we met. And I just want to say that, excuse me, I gotta talk a little bit too fast here. But anyway, I just want to say a couple more developments that you need to know in a practical sense is that we're having a visit by what we call the Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Issues. He's headquartered now in Tucson, Arizona. Thanks to one of our great organizations, the Land Back people have this foundation process. And so they helped us fund. He's a visiting professor there at ASU and Arizona, not ASU, AU, University of Arizona in Tucson. But he's coming here for a visit. Now, a special rapporteur of the UN is someone that does study, documents the conditions of indigenous people. That's his job. And so he's coming here on last week of September. And he'll be hosted by 2 organizations. One is the Oglala Lakota College and also Standing Rock. And so we're going to have him visit here as well as our Rap City community, and so they can see and meet the special rapporteur, who's an indigenous person from Guatemala. Now, Guatemala is a special place because there's 90% Indian people live there. So when you go there, like we did, we traveled there to witness. We had a couple conferences there. It's amazing. Even the bankers are Indian. Teachers, cops, everybody is an Indian. Man, that's a beautiful sight. You get off the plane, people will receive you there. The people in the restaurants, running the restaurant, the people at our hotel, all Indian. First time I experienced that, I thought this could be our way of life. This could be our future in our communities, that all Indians take care of our people. So that's one of the things I witnessed. And another one is that meeting is something that we're working towards at the UN. Because Ocheti Shakoi means we're united as Lakota Nation, Dakota, and Lakota Nation. That's what the UN requires. They have a status at the UN that we want to strive for, and it's called observer status. That's where you're a member of the General Assembly. You get to go in the General Assembly and take part in all the debates, the issues, especially of human rights. And so that's one of our goals as a treaty council, is to attain that observer status, and then as a Ocheti Shakoi, the dream of our elders, Fusco, Matthew Key, these types of people that led us in the early days on this road to the United Nations, they believe that we have a right to be there as nations. And that's our goal, is to someday sit in the General Assembly, take our rightful place in the General Assembly as a nation. We can do that as Ocheti Shakoi. That's what we'll be known as there. Not Rosebud, Pine Ridge, Standing Rock. Will be Ocheti Shakoi. Please take your seat in the General Assembly. That's our dream. That's the vision of all those chiefs who've come and gone. And I'd like to go ahead and recognize Faith at this time. Maybe I have about 5 minutes left. So that's my history, that's my road to liberation of the Ocheti Shakoi. And someday we'll invite you guys all to sit with us at the United Nations as Ocheti Shakoi. That's the dream. Ohechi Tulo. Ilama.